Before I call the meeting to order, I think the last time he was here, he was gone before I could say it, but I would like to just recognize Mr. Heck Sr. As a previous board member. Your leadership when you were on this board set us in the direction in which we are today, and I respectfully thank you for all of that. So it's always nice to see former board members. First item on the agenda, due to new statutory things that happened a couple years ago, is we have to do patron comments first before we do any actionable items. So this is the time we set aside to give to any patrons that want to make any comments about the organization, or the corporation, I mean. The only thing that we cannot discuss in an open meeting is staff or student discipline. So please, if you have anything, feel free to stand up. Just let us know who you are and tell us all about it. Hearing none, I'm going to move on. The next item on the agenda is presentation of Student of the Month items. And so I'll ask the board to come in front. Parents, as we do this, we'll read something. The principals will read something. Feel free to get up and take any pictures if you would like to. Mr. Maurer, do you want to be first?
Yeah. I would like to introduce Erilyn Harner, third grader at Eastern Elementary School. Come on up. And Mrs. Edwards is going to come up there as well. She's one of Erilyn's teachers. She's going to stand right in the middle with you there. All right. And Erilyn is in Mrs. Reynolds' third grade class, but she also has the pleasure of working with several other adult members of our building, including Mrs. Edwards. And Mrs. Reynolds is her homeroom teacher and said she definitely deserves this award. And Mrs. Edwards wrote, "I'm pleased to have been able to nominate Erilyn for Student of the Month. She's a hardworking student and a sweetheart. She is a trustworthy, respectful, and kind individual. I am always so happy that I've gotten to know her. I'm so happy I've gotten to know her this school year. I look forward to having her in my classroom, and I've enjoyed watching her grow." Other teachers, Miss Dowden, who's also here tonight, said that she brings a positive attitude to class every day and always has a smile on her face, even now. Okay, and then our art teacher, Mrs. Johnson, said she leads by example in the classroom. And Mrs. Tyler, who is a paraprofessional and bus driver for us, said that her sense of humor is wonderful and she has a contagious smile. So we're just so happy that she is our Student of the Month. Congratulations.
The middle school student of the month for March is Bristol Heck. When the 8th grade team was tasked with selecting a student of the month, Bristol was a name that appeared on every teacher's list. She's an outstanding student academically and clearly takes pride in doing her best in everything she does. Although she may be quiet at times, that's the teacher's words, not mine, her personality shines whenever you talk with her. That is 100% true. She's always smiling, she has a great sense of humor, and is one of the few students who can appreciate, or at least politely tolerate, her teacher's bad jokes. Teachers mentioned how respectful Bristol is when communicating with both adults and her peers. She is supportive of her friends, helpful to classmates, and a positive presence in the classroom. She's always willing to participate in class and gives 100% effort. Bristol's positive spirit and kindness have helped her build strong friendships. In addition to her academic success, she is also an athlete and a member of National Junior Honor Society. Bristol is a well-rounded student and truly a delight to have at the middle school. We are excited to see all she will accomplish as she moves on to high school next year. We have no doubt she will continue to do great things. Congratulations.
High School Student of the Month is Landon Sweat. Here's what Landon's teachers had to say about him. Landon is an exceptionally kind, bright, and hardworking student with a genuinely promising future ahead of him. His positive attitude and strong work ethic are evident across all of his classes. In culinary, he consistently puts forth thorough effort and completes every task with excellence. In geometry, Landon brings an optimistic and friendly presence to the classroom and remains focused and on task each day. In Spanish, he demonstrates precision, seriousness, and reliability in his work, participating consistently and contributing meaningfully to class activities. Landon's intelligence is matched by his humility, and his teachers can always count on him to be responsible, engaged, and dedicated. His character, academic commitment, and respectful nature make him an outstanding choice for Student of the Month. Congratulations, Landon. And we'll say too, he was recently on our Facebook page for a Rising Star. He got recognized by the Principals Association. So congratulations. I was looking at Mom. She's the trigger finger over there. Good job. That's awesome. So Nicole King, my March Student of the Month, is at Howard County Music Festival practice right now.
We'll take like a 1 or 2 minute break. If anybody wants to leave, feel free. If it's too hot.
It's like Homer Simpson has to hit the thing now.
Are we good to go back on? All right. I will call us back to order. Thank you for the break, and thank you for the air conditioning. Next item on the agenda is, we do the presentation before consent items, so I will pass this off to Chad. Chad, right?
Yep, Chad Blacklock from Stiefel. He's going to talk to us a little about our financial overview.
Yeah, imagine having a quarter zip on.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. There's several slides in this slide deck, and I'll share it with Dr. Ritchie, and he can share it with all of you. I'm not going to go over all of them, or we'd be here about 3 hours, so we're going to do that tonight. The school district engaged with me, I think end of last year, is that right? Yeah, and so what I help a lot of schools do around the state is ultimately help them with kind of a 5-year financial forecast. But with some of the new legislation and enrollment trends and some of this different thing, just making sure that we're kind of layering in all these things that impact a school district's finances. Just a little bit about my background. I was a teacher for about 6 years. Then I got into the business side of schools. I was the CFO for Vincennes Community Schools for a couple years. And then I spent 10 years in Franklin Township Schools in Marion County. And then I joined Stiefel in 2017. And we work with about 130 of the 290 school districts across the state on just this kind of stuff. I spent my whole morning today with another school district and their school board, just kind of talking through some of the same stuff that I'm going to share with you tonight. So ask questions as I go through. Like I said, like Dr. Ritchie said, it's going to be kind of a high level. I'm welcome to come back anytime and give you more of an in-depth presentation at any time that you would want to do that. So I'm going to kind of point to my guy back here. You can go on past that one. I'm going to hold on this slide. So this slide, I just want to go through a few of these bullet points because it kind of sets the stage, I feel like, for some of the things that we're dealing with in school finance today. The first bullet point there, just running a school district from the financial side is just much more different than it was 10, 15 years ago when this is my 18th year in school finance, and it was even more different than when I got into it. And a lot of that has to do with some of the legislative changes that have come down at us. And it's not just really impacting finances. I mean, ultimately, a lot of it impacts finances, but we have things impacting curriculum, just impacting the way we run a school district in general. So I make that point to say that I think a lot of school boards and superintendents are trying to just wrap their heads around, like, how do we operate in this new atmosphere that we have working on us today? Not that it's right or wrong, it's just different. And so how do we navigate this? You guys, like every other school district, our people are our most important asset, and we're trying to make sure that we maintain fair and competitive pay. And so on the expense side of our ledger, that's just making expenses go up, as is bus fuel and the cost of a bus and all of those things as well. All while revenue isn't really keeping up with some of those measures. So again, how do we work through that? Number 4 there, which you guys are well aware of, is that, in today's world and running a public school, kids have a choice, and they can go really to whatever school that they want to go to. And you can find 5 school options on this phone, if you want to, for your child. Again, not that it's right or wrong, or philosophically if we agree or disagree, but again, this is new, and how do we navigate that? And we're going to look today a little bit about into your transfer students and what those numbers look like. On the operational side of running a school, just like we know when we go to the grocery store, inflation has really hit the operational side of a school district. And when I talk about the operational side, it's things like running transportation, it's paying, custodials, it's paper towels, it's the cost of a new chiller at your high school building or in roofs, and all of property and casualty insurance, all those types of things have really gone up exponentially for a school district. And so to just give you a little bit of comparison, just 6 years ago, you could buy an 80-passenger school bus for $130,000. Today, it's over $230,000. You could build a brand new elementary 6 or 7 years ago, state of the art, for $35 million. Today, it's $75 million. And so when you start to think about those things and the magnitude of that, and how it's hit the expense side of a school district, it's a lot. It's a lot of money. Property and casualty insurance for most school districts, our premiums that we pay to insure our buildings have literally tripled to quadrupled over the last 3 to 4 years. And that's mainly because the cost to replace a building today is much different than it was 5 years ago. I mean, just like our homeowners insurance has gone up. So everything has gone up. But the reality is that our revenue hasn't really necessarily kept pace with that, okay? And so the last point is, A lot of schools are turning to operating referendums. Not that you guys are thinking or considering doing that, but I always like to put that slide on there. We do have a lot of schools that are choosing to do an operating referendum. The school districts have very limited tools to get new revenue. We get revenue via new kids, or you can run an operating referendum and ask taxpayers for additional revenue. But other than that, we're limited in how we can just get new revenue coming into a school district. Okay? Next slide. Let's go through that one. You can keep going. Keep going. I'm going to stop here. So I think this slide is important to make sure that you guys have a baseline understanding as I get into your financial picture of the two main types of revenue that come into a school district. So the first main type is money that we get from the state. And we get money from the state based on every kid. And so when we take a count, and we take counts for kids twice a year, we take a count in February and we take another count in October. When we just took a February count about 3 weeks ago, we count those kids. Dr. Ritchie has to submit that to the state, and we get money for each one of them. Those count days are very important to our financial situation. We get an amount of money per kid, and that amount of money per kid is set by our legislators, and they establish that dollar amount. And the foundation dollar amount for every kid in the state is the same for every school. Then we have some other grants that kind of build on top of that can cause a little bit of disparity among schools, but it's not as much, the disparity is not as wide as it used to be. Those dollars are receipted into what we call our education fund, and our education fund has a distinct purpose of funding the instructional side of a school district. So the education fund pays the salaries and benefits of all teachers, principals, IAs, nurses, speech pathologists, all of those kind of people are paid with our state funding, and any kind of expense that goes along with that, okay? So I like to go back to drive the point home. So really our state funding is capped by the amount of what it generates, the amount per kid set by the legislators times the number of kids. That's the cap. And we have to keep our expenses within that cap of revenue. The other type of source of revenue that we bring in is property tax. And these two sources of revenue really run 98% of your school district. And so we can get our hands around these and what this revenue is going to do for the next 4 or 5 years for you. We can really start to make a fairly solid forecast. So on the property tax side, property tax funds two things in a school district. It funds the debt. You guys have some outstanding debt that you've taken on to fund capital improvements around your building. Property tax funds that 100%. No state funding repays debt. It's all repaid by property tax. The other thing that property tax funds is the operational side of our school district. So the operational side being that transportation, maintenance, and all of that, property tax dollars goes into the operations fund, and it funds all of those types of costs in our school district. One thing that is unique about the property tax side is that on the debt side, this is kind of an emphasized point, but in our debt fund where we repay our debts, there's really no cap on the amount of debt that a school corporation can take on. There's no state law that really says, your school district could only take on so much debt. Our driver of the amount of debt that we take on is really levying the property tax. If you guys take on $300 million worth of debt, then you got to levy the property taxpayer to repay that. And we don't want to do that. We usually want to do debt somewhat tax neutral so it doesn't have a significant increase on taxes. So the debt fund really doesn't have a cap to it. However, the operational side of it, the operations fund, has a cap. And that cap is unique to Eastern Howard School District. And so I say that because when I go back to that all of our inflationary costs in the operations fund, like the price of a bus and bus fuel and paper towels and all those things have gone up substantially, well, if our expenses start to get outside of the cap, we can't go ask the taxpayer to pay more to run the operational side of your district unless you do an operating referendum. So we have to keep our expenses within the revenue that comes into the school district. There's not a way to bring in additional revenue. We have to focus on the expense side of our ledger. So education fund capped by the kids times the per student amount set by our legislators. The operation side is really capped by the amount of property tax revenue given to us by the state that we can ask the taxpayers to pay. Okay? You can skip that one and kind of go on. You can go on past. Yeah, you can go on past that one. You can go on past. Keep going. Yep. You can keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah, keep going on past that. Keep going. Keep going. You're going to get to a slide that says like education fund at the top, financial. Oh, let's stop with that one. That's ADM. Yep. So when I talked about the ADM count, so what I'm showing you here, and ADM stands for average daily membership. That's our fancy education term for enrollment. And so ADM is what we submit to the DOE in February and again in October. And I'm just simply giving you here a snapshot of your ADM going back to the spring count of 2019 in this bar chart. So I know it's kind of small, but that bar all the way to the far left, that would be, thank you, that would be your ADM count in the February count of 2019. Our budgets work on a calendar year. A lot of people don't realize that. They think our budgets operate on a school year, but our budgets are actually January through December. And so that's why everything I'm going to talk about is be more on a calendar year. So you can see what our ADM count was in that February count of 2019. Then when we took the October count of 19, you can see that our number of kids went up. I'm going to walk around here. If you look at the little chart over here to the side, we increased 58 kids to 1,557. Then we took another count in the February of 2020, and we went down 3. So you kind of use the bar chart with my little chart over here to the side. And I like to monitor how your school district is doing 6 months to 6 months to 6 months, because that's how we get funding, and funding is adjusted every 6 months. So our most recent count in the spring, we just took our count spring of 2026, we were at the 1,604 in that blue bar, and we were down 10 kids. That means we lost funding for 10 kids. However, the previous count period in the fall of 25, we were up 46 kids, so we got funding for 46 new kids. And so again, that's why I like to see what you guys are doing every 6 months, because that starts to help me do a projection for you of what kind of our future enrollment might look like, times the per kid funding to get a revenue projection moving forward. Can you shrink that back down for me just a little bit so I can see the rest of the slide? Thank you. So on average, if I kind of average out your 6 month change going back to the spring of 23 through the spring of 26, you guys on average are losing 1 kid every 6 months, or 2 kids in a calendar year, which is pretty good in today's world. As of 2025, 70% of our 290 school corporations are declining in enrollment. So the majority of public schools in Indiana are declining in enrollment. So the fact that you guys are kind of holding steady is a thumbs up, honestly, on average. And I put some just kind of other stats down there. Between 2019 and 2026, you had 105 students, or 7% decline. 10% student decline between the spring of 23 and the spring of 26. One reason that I go back to the spring of 23, during our kind of COVID years, that 19 through 22 area, we see kind of some jankiness with enrollments in schools, like the one where you lost to 48 and then down 12 and then up 62. That's kind of what I see during those years. So I kind of throw those out when I'm looking at averages and kind of look at a more recent kind of snapshot. As of the spring of 2025, you had 714 students from other school districts that are choosing to go to school here, which is 46% of your total enrollment. And then in the fall 25 count, that went up to 785 transfers, which was 49% of your enrollment. So a lot of kids are choosing your school as their destination, which goes back to that bullet point that I had on that first slide, is that, our kids have a choice. And the choice is easy to make anymore, because it's easy to find another school district, and we welcome that for kids to do that. And so you guys are a destination, and you guys know that. I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations around that. This slide, again, while I know kind of small, it just gives you a little more insight into, your transfer students. And so I've just grabbed every one of your county schools, and I'll just kind of walk through here to see that first column that has your 953 in it. That tells me that, in simple terms, I'm saying that the DOE said that during that count period, there are 953 what I'll call eligible customers that live in your school district that can attend your schools. So those are school-age kids living in Eastern Howard School District, and they need to go to school somewhere, okay? Of the 953, 854, or 90%, chose you as their option to go to public school. If we just kind of run on across, 714 came from other school districts and transferred into your school district for education. You had 93 students transfer out to another public school, and so you had a net positive 621. And that's just taking the 714 minus the 93 to get to a positive 621. You had 6 kids during that period use the voucher program. That's called the Choice Scholarship. So they used the voucher to probably go to a non-parochial type school. And so at the end, once we factor all that in, you had a positive 615. And so you can kind of look at your stats compared to the other school districts in your county. And so the top line is the spring of 25, and the bottom line is the next 6-month count period, the fall of 25. Once the spring of 26 numbers come out, I'll add that to this slide. I think this is the important information for us to track moving forward as a public school district. Where are kids going? Where are our kids coming from? Because they're going to come and go. It's just that we track those and we use that data to run our school district development. On the next slide, this just gives you a little more idea of, in the kind of pink colored, those are the, during the spring of 25 and fall of 25, those are the kids that transferred out. So they lived in Eastern Howard schools and they went to that other school district. And so in the spring of 25, you had 85, and you can kind of see where they went. And in the spring of or in the fall of 25, you had 90. Some of those schools you might look at and say, like I'm going to say Clarksville, for example, you might say that's way down south by Jeffersonville. They have a really robust online program, so that's definitely virtual kids that are going there. Just as I kind of looked through that list, we picked up 6 kids going to Beech Grove in the fall of 25. They just opened a online virtual program. Union School Corporation, you had 19 and 14, huge online virtual program. Madison Grant has an online personal program. So those I know for sure kind of going down through that I'm going to say those are probably virtual kids. And then probably the other schools that are more around here, Elwood, McConaughey, North Miami, those are probably more butts and seats at the school district. The other area that says public charter transfers, that's the kids that you've lost to a charter school. And so you can kind of see, these are common. I see these on just about every school district. These are all options. These are all virtual options. Those are all virtual charter schools that you're losing kids to. So you've lost 8 and 8. And then if we look at the next section, those are the kids that are choosing a parochial school. You're probably familiar with the names that are up there, and so they're using the voucher to go to a parochial school, okay? The next slide shows us, these are where you're getting kids from. So these are the kids that are transferring into our school district, and you can see the numbers of them and where they are coming from. So it just kind of starts to dive into the details of all of that. And so again, when the spring of 26 report comes out, I'll add that column. I think as I start giving presentations to you guys, we'll always just kind of track that and keep our hands around that. Okay? Okay, let's go on. Let's pass that slide, just kind of in the interest of time, and let's stop. Yeah, we can get that slide kind of on the screen. That would be perfect. Oh yeah, yep. You might just have to shrink it out a little bit though. Okay. So what I want to start to do here, you'll see this slide. Anytime I give a financial update, I always have a slide like this. This takes a look at your education fund only. So remember, state support comes in from revenue, and then we have expense side funding the instructional side of our school district, okay? And so what I'm showing you here in the line graph is this is just simply going back to 2019. The blue line is the revenue that came in for the year, and the red line are the expenses that went out for the same calendar year. And you can see, kind of how those have tracked. Now, if you look down in the chart below, that's what I'm going to pay a little more attention to. And I want to talk about a little bit about really how the fund has performed, and I want to define what I mean by performance. So one thing we do in schools is that we take a look at the ending cash balance of our budget year as a percentage of the expenses for the year. And this just starts to give all of us as financial leaders in a school district to say, did we do okay in the fund? Like, is the fund healthy? Is our school district healthy? Are we in a good place or bad place, okay? So if you look at 2022, you ended 2022 with $3,647,000 in cash on December 31st. That's just a point in time that we look at. In schools, we always look at January 1, the amount of cash in the fund, because that's when we start the budget. And then during the first 6-month period, we bring in some revenue and we have some expenses go out. And then come June 30th, we look at our June 30th balances. And so what I would look at is I would look at to see, well, is our June 30 balance higher or lower than our January balance? If our balance went down, that means during that period we spent more than we brought in. So we had a budget deficit. And then so we then fast forward and we do the same thing for December 31st. And so we compare January through December to see, did we spend into cash or did we not? And so that number is in the line that's called net income. What that number tells me is that you grew your cash during that January through December period by $458,000. So you grew to a $3.6 million cash balance. That cash balance as a percentage of the expenditures for the year was 33.9%. My target, and this is simply Chad's target, I always call this is just my target in 18 years of school finance, would be a 20% balance for you. So the reason that we have cash balances in place kind of goes back to, it gives us a little bit of cushion, because remember I said our enrollment is adjusted every 6 months. Could we take an October count and you guys decline by 60 kids? It could happen. And if you decline by that many kids in a fall count, you can't react and cut staff. You can't, in the middle of a school year, disrupt education. So you might have to eat into your cash a little bit until you make a proactive decision about, whoa, we didn't see this coming, how do I fix this? So that's really why we have cash there. And what I found is a 20% balance is kind of a good target. It's a good target for a school district of your size and that is not dramatically losing enrollment. If a school is losing tons of enrollment, I might want to up that a little bit because they're a little more volatile. If a school district is smaller than you, I might say they need a little more cash because our margin of error is small, the smaller the school district. So I have that in green because to me that kind of tells me you grew by cash, that means your budget was balanced, and you are above my target, okay? So now we're going to talk about now we start to compare year to year to year. So in 23, we started with $3.6 million in cash on January 1. When we got to the end of 23, December 31st, we grew our cash by $131,000. So you've had 2 years of a budget surplus, which is a thumbs up. That means we're managing our budgets, we're managing our dollars. And you ended at 31%. So you might say, well, Chad, why, if the cash balance went up, why did the percentage go down? Well, that tells me your expenses went up during that period. So the higher cash balance was a lower percentage of a higher number. So you probably gave some raises and different things like that, and so that's what caused the percentage to go down. We get to 24, we ate into cash a little bit. We still ended at $3.7 million. We ate into cash $69,000, but we still ended at 29%, well above the target. And then you can see we just finished at 25. We ate into cash a little bit in 25. We still ended at 21%, still above the target. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing to eat into cash, especially if you're above your targets. We just have to know that and we have to manage that, okay? And so on the forecast side, I want you to kind of take a look at the forecast side. So on the forecast side, we know our per student funding for the next 2 years. Through June 30th of 27, because when the legislators set per student funding, they set it for 2 years at a time. So we know our per student funding through July of 27 or June of 27. We just kind of have to keep our hands around what your enrollment does, and I have you right now losing 2 kids a year because that's what you've been doing historically. And so that's kind of in the revenue forecast. On the expense side up there, I have expenses staying flat from 2025 as a baseline projection that I want to show you guys. And so you can see moving forward, what I want to start to look at is what is your cash due, okay? So we feel pretty confident about the revenue forecast. Now, what could change? If you lose 30 kids in October, revenue's going to decline. That means cash is going to decline, or I'm going to say you have to react to that, maybe cutting expenses or something like that. The flip side could happen. You could get 30 kids, that's going to take revenue up, okay? The other thing that will impact the expense side is if we give pay raises, which we know we're going to have some kind of expense increases between 26 and 30. But I use this as a baseline to say that if our revenue forecast kind of plays out in this manner, as you bring on new raises or expense increases, health insurance increases, those kind of things, it's going to start to draw your cash down a little bit. Because you can see right now that cash balances remain fairly flat through 28, but then they start to increase again. So I like to start here because this tells me you don't have an overall structural budget deficit. Like, you've been managing expenses and revenue, and you're in a pretty good spot. We just have to really keep our hands around the enrollment, what our per student funding is doing forward, and we just want to keep that kind of moving as we give raises moving forward, what that looks like, okay? I'm going to pause there and let anybody ask questions that I want to ask. Go ahead. Do you have a question? Oh, no, okay. Anybody else questions? You want anything? Okay. The other thing that we do, you see where I have a line up there that says operations transfer. One thing that we're allowed to do is we receipt that state funding into the education fund, and we are allowed to transfer some of that state funding out of the education fund over to the operations fund, okay? And there's a whole kind of history behind why we would do that, why we are allowed to do that, but there's a cap, and the cap is 15%. It's 15% of the state funding that we bring in for the year. You can transfer that much over to operations. And so I'm showing you there what your transfer is. You've been hovering right around the 15% for the last few years. And so I left the transfer at 15% moving forward. I bring that up because one thing that a lot of schools are trying to do, now you can bring the transfer down to 0. You just can't go above 15%. So let's think strategically how that would help us. If we bring the transfer down, it leaves revenue in the education fund to fund the instructional side of our school district. But we've got to make sure that the operational side of our school district is whole, because if I bring that down to, let's say, 10, leaves money in education, but it takes cash away from operations. So I really see those two funds as one. And we're just trying to manage them as much as we can. So what a lot of schools are trying to do is they're focusing a lot of their time on the operational side of our schools. You know, making sure transportation's efficient, making sure maintenance is efficient, making sure all these things that we pay for out of the operations fund is as efficient as it can be. And that looks a little different and defined a little differently for most schools. And so if we can keep those expenses as much in check, then maybe we could bring that transfer down a little bit to keep more money in the instructional side of our house, okay? All right, next slide. So same slide, but for operations. So remember, operations, property tax, plus that transfer that we move over from education on the revenue side. We also have some Senate Bill 1, which I'm sure you guys have talked a little bit about, SEA 1. There are some impacts that are going to be hitting your operations fund starting in 2026 and continuing on at this point. I've layered those revenue impacts into this. Again, I'm happy to come talk to you guys some other time about how Senate Bill 1 works and the details of that. That's a whole nother conversation. But know that I've layered the revenue. It's going to take some revenue away from your operations fund, and I have that layered into this picture, okay? All right, so let's kind of go through. Expenses are flat from 25, just like I said before, but I want to focus in on that chart. So same format. December 31st, we ended with $94,905 in cash. We had a $75,000 net income, so cash went up that year by $75,000. And that was a 2% balance. So I have that in red because that was low. That was a really low balance. Makes me a little nervous to get that low. My target in a property tax fund is 25%. It's 5% higher than our ed fund, and here's why. Property tax, while our state tuition support comes into a school district on a monthly basis. Amy gets a check every month from the DOE, receipts that into the education fund. From a cash flow standpoint, it's very even payments, right? And so then we pay our teachers and we go to the next month and we get another check. Property tax is different. Property tax only comes into the school district in June and December. So you gotta think about January, February, March, April, May, you're running buses, you're paying custodians, you're buying paper towels, you're paying property and casualty insurance. You're operating your school district for 5 months with no revenue. January, February, March, April, May. June comes, get a big check from the county, and that's all property tax, and we receive it into operation. So now cash is back up. Then July comes, and we start operating July, August, September, October, November, no revenue, and then boom, December comes, we get a big check. So that's a cash flow problem. And so probably if you start to, like in the year that you got down to 2.2%, come February or March, the operations fund is probably running into the red because it's a cash flow issue. Now, you know, in June I'm going to be made whole, but I've got a cash flow problem at that point. So what I find with schools, if we hover more around a 25% balance, that keeps us from ever running our fund into the red before we get June and December tax draws. Okay? Okay, so then let's fast forward to 23. You guys increased your cash by up to 206 or up to 362,000, which was a $267,000 surplus. Then in 24 we increased cash again. 25 we increased cash, and then that's in 25. And then we were at the 610,000, which was 12%. So we were on the right track. So in 26. Layering in the keeping the transfer from the ed fund at 15%, putting in the impact from Senate Bill 1, but keeping our expenses flat as a baseline scenario, you can kind of see in the ops fund, it looks a little different than your ed fund. Your cash is actually starting to grow in your operations fund, okay? So that's a plus, because that tells me we might be able to have a strategy moving forward. We got to be able to throttle down our transfer, keep a little more money in the ed fund, but our operations fund still stays whole. So I'm going to say my advice is don't take on any huge expenses in operations. Let's keep that as efficient as we can, and then we can start to use that as a strategy. And this model helps us to utilize that strategy to make it the most efficient for us to run your school district. Okay. I'll pause there. Questions about any of that? I know this is a lot of information. Quick. School Finance 101 in 15 minutes. All right, next slide. This is your rainy day fund. Your rainy day fund is a little unique. The rainy day fund doesn't have an ongoing source of revenue. No property tax goes in the rainy day fund. No state support goes in the rainy day fund. It just sits there. The only revenue that goes into your rainy day fund is that the board can authorize transfers. If you have extra money sitting in education or operations only, not debt, you get to the end of a budget year and Dr. Ritchie says, hey, we've got a few $100,000 left in our education fund that we don't need. We're at our 20% target. It's just kind of unappropriated money. You can transfer, the board can authorize a transfer to the rainy day fund. And you've done some of that. In 23, in 24, and 25, you can see what I transferred. You guys transferred 100, 150, and then 300,000 into the rainy day fund from one of the other funds. And so your 25, you went from 153,000 in cash to 704,000 in cash. And the way the rainy day fund works on the expense side, you guys have spent nothing out of it. And so I have you spending nothing out of it moving forward. And that's usually pretty typical for schools. It's truly like a rainy day. at some point, this board, at some point when the board had to authorize a resolution to start your rainy day fund, and in that resolution, it states what you can pay for out of the rainy day fund. And so, at any time that you guys want to budget dollars to be spent out of there, as long as it's per the resolution, you can. But I would say a lot of schools, this is pretty similar to a lot of schools I see. They kind of put some money in there and just kind of leave it in there, and it just kind of sits there in case there is a rainy day, or you need to buy a bus, or you need to buy something like that out of it potentially. So that's a strategy that you can have around that particular fund. So I'm gonna pause there. I've taken up my 15 or 20 minutes and see if you have any questions, or Dr. Rich, anything you want me to elaborate on or go back over? You know, go ahead.
The only thing is that, and I hear this, and I preach to my principals all the time about bringing our AD and keeping it above 1,600.
Yeah.
1,625, I do believe, is our target number, because I think we're full at 1,625. But just stressing the importance of that number and making sure we stay there. With the transfers that we are capable of taking, we should never turn away 100 a year, and we've been doing that.
One kid is worth about $7,500 to $8,000 in your education fund. It's so critical with the volatility with enrollment now. I mean, you guys are fortunate that you're getting so many kids. Most of my school districts I go to are on the other end of that, and they're losing all these kids. And so those are different conversations. So you guys are really fortunate, but I would agree with you. I mean, every kid that you can get, I always use this analogy that the days of being able to fund, you know, really low class sizes and really good teacher pay, like that's tough anymore. Those days unfortunately are gone. You know, a lot of times I remind school boards, especially if they're newer board members, when I first got into this finance side of schools, the state used to actually give us a whole separate grant that was called a class size grant. And the idea, I don't know if you remember that, the idea of that grant was for us to hire more teachers to have small class sizes. That grant's gone. We also got a rural school grant. So if you were a small Indiana rural school, the state of Indiana said, hey, we recognize that our community members value their small rural school, and we know it costs a little bit more money to run them. We're gonna give you more money to do that. That grant's gone too. So as this money has been just kind of chipped away at our school district, what we have driving our funding now is kids. You have to get kids because we don't have additional grants out there anymore, and that's what makes it tough. So I would concur with you that every kid really counts when it comes to teacher pay, custodian pay. I mean, just paying all of your people to keep our pay fair and competitive. I always use the words fair and competitive. Fair and competitive for you is what's in this area, and that might be different in the Indianapolis area, but you got to keep your pay fair and competitive to attract and retain your talent. Yeah, so I concur.
How much did you say per kid?
You guys are right around $7,500 per kid, and that's our foundation money plus our complexity. And so we get a little bit more money for our kids of poverty. And that we call that our complexity grant. So when you add those two together, it gets you about $75,000 to $8,000 per kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said that we want to keep our expenses level. Does that include debt?
So debt's a whole nother conversation, and I don't include debt in this because debt operates in its own separate bucket, its own separate fund. And whatever you really do in debt doesn't impact any of this. So I use that as just kind of a different conversation. I think Luke, one of my colleagues, has probably talked to you guys a little bit about that. So no, the only thing that the debt part really matters about when it commingles with this conversation is your tax rate. Because your operations fund has a tax rate, property tax rate, and debt has a property tax rate. And so some of Senate Bill 1 could start to increase your tax rates. And so because assessed values are going to decline. And that, again, that's about an hour conversation I'd be happy to have with you guys sometime. But yeah, it doesn't really commingle with this. Nothing you do here really implements with debt, and nothing we do with debt really interferes with this. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Well,
I just want to make sure I answer it.
I'm wanting to, in essence, my understanding is, if you take our most recent project.
Yeah.
We had our most recent project where we involved the pool and some other type
Sure.
stuff. The pool was causing a lot of cost on the operations side
I'm with you now.
versus the debt.
Yes.
It was, we're much better off, right? Because we moved, yes, it was more expensive to redo
Yeah.
the pool, but by redoing it, it lowered the operations cost because we were just spending a ton of money on
All those
a
I hear about
cleaning,
pools a lot. Yeah,
cleaning
now I'm
systems
tracking
and all
you.
that.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so you're 100% correct. You know, if we go back to your operations fund and looked at your expenditures, pools have a way of doing that. It's just kind of nickel and dimes every year. And I think that's what it sounds like. Maybe that's what you
Yeah.
guys have battled. And it's like we just need to rip off the Band-Aid and fix it.
Mhm.
And maybe you guys, sounds like maybe you guys decided to do that, so thumbs up, yeah. So, you know, pools could, I don't know what it was costing you, I'd have to dig into that, but I mean, it could have been costing your operations fund $150,000 every single year for 5 or 6 years.
It was.
And then,
It was.
and now we're 800,000 into this thing, and we're probably really no better off. Why don't we just fix it? And so, and that comes back to the whole conversation that a lot of people, a lot of our constituents don't understand the funds and the buckets. And so, when you're constantly repairing something over and over and over, and you're taking that money out of operations, I mean, in the end, you're also taking it out of the ed fund, right? And so if we can just fix something and not drain 100 or 150,000 every year out of our ops fund, we just freed up 150,000, and all you did was simply shift it over to the debt fund. That has nothing to do with any of this. We try to keep the tax rate neutral as we can, and you just fix it. Yeah. So yeah, now I'm tracking. You're exactly.
My hope was that as people ask questions, I can just say, go back and watch the board meeting for such and such. That's exactly what
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yes, yes. No, you're exactly right. And that goes back to my conversation about trying to keep that operations fund as efficient, I use the word efficient, as we can. That's capital expenditures, that's all of those things that we can keep our hands around and try to keep that fund whole like you guys are doing. You know, so that just helps our ed fund as well to pay our teachers and our instructional staff, which is what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No
like
valid point.
So the point being, like the water fix that we had over Christmas break or whatever, it's a huge expense, where if we would have to just
Just fix
rip the
it.
Band-Aid off
Yeah.
and fix it that way, it's far better than the nickel and dime stuff that gets us over time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in working with Dr. Ritchie, I mean, I think Luke, my colleague, will talk to you some, he does more of the debt stuff in our office, you know, but that's what we try to do with our clients, is really on the debt side, get a long-term plan in place. And so you guys just kind of know, hey, that's coming up, because I know it's gonna be in this debt issuance, and we're gonna fix that.
Yeah.
And so that people get real energized in education. When I was a CFO, being the money guy, that people are always energized. When are you gonna fix this? When are we gonna do this? And so usually people just kind of know the plan. If there's a plan, that brings the anxiety down.
Yeah.
When you've got
Yeah.
things constantly breaking. Hey, there's a plan, we are gonna fix it. Yeah.
We talked about Mr. Heck earlier, but it's board leadership before us.
Yeah.
That has just done that over time.
Yeah, that's
That has
fantastic.
done a great job here at Eastern, so I commend them. long
It's not
before me.
easy. It's not easy what you guys have to do on a daily basis, so, yeah. Good questions. Other questions for me?
Anybody else? Thank you for.
You're welcome.
your time.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate
Yep,
it.
absolutely.
Are you gonna leave us a copy of this so that I can distribute?
Yeah,
it?
no, I'll email it to you tomorrow.
Okay, super.
And
All right.
you're welcome to share it with everybody.
Thank you, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And you're more than welcome to stay if you want, or,
I've got a 2-hour drive, so.
yeah. Ice cream on the way out.
Randy,
Go
You know,
ahead.
if
I'm
I
giving
go
you
a lot
another
of rural
kindergartner
towns,
this
they
coming
all
year.
have a little dairy
I'm
farm.
trying to
Yeah.
contribute all I
I
can.
saw it down there. I might need to stop. That might be a stop.
Well, you already have one.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, Thank you very much for that. The next item on the agenda, I have consent items. Is there anything that anybody would like to take separate?
Make a motion, we approve the consent items as presented.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No, I will call that for a vote. And that passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda looks like, well,
Eastern Elementary.
it says introduction of new employees, but none in front of that, so we're just gonna skip that. And we're just gonna move straight on to Mr. Mauer and the elementary fun time.
Chad gave me his notes on the debt service stuff you guys were talking about. Cole, if you want to pull up the slides, I'll do the rest of the 3 hours. Or, no? Okay. You know what? We'll come back to that. At the elementary, we're in the middle of the IREAD 3 right now. 3rd grade finished it last week, along with the couple of 4th or 5th graders that we had that needed to take it. So that was completed last week for the 3rd grade, 4th, 5th, and then this week, 2nd grade is taking their turn. So we've got the kids in the small groups that need to be, and we have kindergarten and 1st grade teachers also helping administer the test. That way, since they're helping get everyone prepared for it as well, they can see kind of the proctoring side of it and just kind of get a glimpse of the test from that point of view. But everybody's doing a great job, and the kids have been working really hard on it, so we're expecting some good things again. Kindergarten roundup, we had parent night last Wednesday. I think we had about 50 families there, which is about right. We had a good turnout, lots of new faces. The open house is next Wednesday, the 18th, from 6 to 7:30. So we expect to have probably about 80 to 90 students there. We have roughly 90 on our list right now, which is about right for this time of year for us to have that amount. So looks like we're right on track for another full kindergarten class. We had students in 4th grade take the NAEP test, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. They use that to help determine the nation's report card. We had just under 50 kids that were randomly selected. Not every school across the country takes it. They randomly select schools, randomly select 4th and 8th graders to take it. So we were in the barrel this year. So our 4th grade students either took a math test or a reading test, and it was about 70 minutes long unless they have accommodations for needing more time, and got through it pretty easily. So no battle scars or anything from that one. We had National Breakfast Week last week, and Mrs. Marner did a wonderful job with the cafeteria staff, just expressing the importance of breakfast to start every day. They had different themes going on every day, and likewise they had different staff members down there serving breakfast every morning, just to make it a little more fun for kids. I know every day they have about, I think they're serving about 200 breakfasts daily, and during this week it goes up towards the 300. So we always get a lot of extra breakfasts, and then they do a little contest too with the kids, and so it was a fun week. And then we also had Read Across America Week going on, and that always starts with Dr. Seuss's birthday, and then it goes throughout the week. Kindergarten, 1st grade levels do a lot with having mystery readers come in, and that just means somebody from outside the classroom comes in and reads one of the Dr. Seuss books to the class, and so it's always a fun time being able to go down and do that, and also seeing who they invite in as mystery readers. There's always a few familiar faces from years past, and retired teachers and things like that. So it's always fun for that. And I want to throw a quick shout out to Mrs. Julia Wilson, who works in our kitchen and also is part-time custodian for us when we need somebody to fill in and sub. The night of kindergarten roundup, it was pouring down rain, and one of the moms dropped her wallet out in the parking lot, and Julia found it the next morning and brought it in. It was totally and completely soaked, and it had quite a bit of money and gift cards inside it as well. And she just walked in and said, "Did somebody drop this?" And so we opened it, saw who it was. I was like, "Yep, she was here last night." So we called her and got it back to her. But just, I love that example of honesty with our employees, and just, we have good people here, and that's just another example of trustworthy people that we have here at Eastman. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. Nothing about debt either? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Let's start to the middle school.
Hey, I'm excited to get to start with the DC proposal first. You guys already have
Yeah, we got
copies of all the things? Yes. Do you have this one too? Jennifer. I mean, if he was gonna take 3 hours, I'm taking 1 hour, so excited about it. Really, I'm not gonna read through the whole rationale part, but it does go through why this trip, while exciting and a great opportunity for the kids, just in general, how it connects to our state standards. So you can read through that. It gives some of the experiences that we have proposed in our quote that I'm gonna go over, and how each one of those connects to our state standards. I am going to move over to the backside, just talk about the dates, the cost, and then any questions you guys have. We are requesting that you guys would approve the trip to DC for the 26-27 school year in February. We selected these dates in the interest of cost. If you go during April, when the cherry blossoms are there, the cost goes up a lot. And we could kind of get this cost a little bit lower at other times of the year, but it really impacted a lot of the other activities we already have planned on our calendar. So it is $945. That would include our bus, travel, lodging at a hotel, 3 breakfasts, 4 lunches, 3 dinners, along with other things. So that's all of our entrance into museums, that's the local guide, that's security in the hotel throughout the evening. So the cost, I really think it's feasible for the trip to DC. We started out at $11.45, so we negotiated it down without losing anything, and we got a couple of dinners in there that I'm super excited for the kids. So you'll see the dinners are not specific with the restaurants, but we've asked them to take them to Hard Rock, which for 8th graders, that's something exciting to be able to do when you're out of state. So we have some participation criteria. The company themselves asked the parents and the kids to sign a contract, just in general, you're going with the company and the guide, etc. As a school, we would put in some different parameters to add to that. So maintaining their academic integrity, so no D's or F's during the 26-20 school year leading up, of course, to the trip. That they would maintain appropriate school behavior with no discipline referrals during the school year leading up to the trip, and that they would demonstrate consistent school attendance, and so we don't have any concerns. I mean, obviously you're going to have just natural illnesses, doctor's appointments, etc., but nothing that would be excessive. So some benefits that I have over there, I talked about a little bit within the fee, but I'd like to highlight that they can get high school credit for this for no additional cost. It is pretty independent. They have to complete the coursework online once they come back. It is elective credit, so it doesn't count for specific pathways and buckets, but it's free, and it is an elective credit. So that also gives PGPs for our teacher chaperones, so it would be professional development for them. Our ratio for chaperones is 10-1, so my goal is 40 kids. 45 would be the maximum for one bus. If we got more than 45 for the first year, we'd have to look at what that would look like for 2 buses. I would be elated, but our goal right now is 40, and so that would allow us to take 4 chaperones, so 2 males and 2 females. And then parents could also chaperone, but they would be paying full price. So that 10-to-1 ratio would mean with our paying students that we would be able to take a teacher or staff member chaperone. And then you'll see down there, I talked a little bit about the date. It does currently interfere with 2 sporting events. So the 7th and 8th grade girls have a basketball game already on the calendar, and wrestling is already on the calendar. We are working with Mr. Heisner to see if we can rearrange those. So this was the least amount of conflicts on this date, and since we're so far in advance, he thought it was a high likelihood that we could reschedule those dates. And then this is, of course, all the different places that we'll be stopping and going, all the different sites that they'll see. And you can see it is fast paced. I mean, we leave, we take the bus out there, we get there that evening, we have dinner, and we go visit night memorials. Like, we don't stop until time to go to bed, and then we get them up again the next morning, have breakfast, and hit the ground running. So we tell the kids, be prepared to walk a lot, and you're gonna learn a lot, and they don't believe us, and then we go, and they're like, whoa. So it's not a vacation, it's definitely a learning experience the entire time. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Looks great.
This is for you.
I know, this looks great. I move we go with this trip.
Second.
Shocking no one here. Cheryl has motion, I hear Evan as a second, so,
Yes.
any further discussion? All right, we'll just see how much y'all like Cheryl,
Okay. Right.
something near and dear
If
to
it was a
her
secret ballot, maybe, but.
I'm watching. I'm watching. There we go.
Oh,
There
she
we go.
passes 5 this year.
All right, wonderful. So within my future updates, I'll let you guys know. This company, we had 2 companies that I talked to, and they both were very good. But one of the things that I liked with this company is that they will send a representative to talk with our parents, and I think that'll be really assuring for our parents when they have questions and knowing that the company's with us alongside the whole time. So, thank you. Look forward to it. All right, so the middle school update. Winter sports are wrapping up. Our last home events are actually tonight. We have swimming and basketball going on across the way. Our wrestling team won the Hoosier Heartland Conference last weekend, so nice big trophy for their winnings. Congratulations to them. The musical is coming up, and we do have several middle school students participating, so we're looking forward to that and seeing that all come together. We are wrapping up checkpoint 3 for iLearn, so we'll do that right before spring break. We'll come back from spring break, we'll have not quite a full week, and we'll start the iLearn summative test. So it's a quick turnaround for this one. When we come back from spring break, we have lots of activities to look forward to. So we'll have a few attendance incentives that we're working on, an activity night, 5th grade visits. We have some field trips coming up, so April and May will be packed with all the good things. So talking about 5th grade visits, we do have transfer applications coming in connection to our presentation earlier. We're reaching out to those families and scheduling tours now. And I know we've been talking with some of the high school, what we're doing with our communication with Redeemer and St. Joan of Arc, and opportunities to give those families that are wanting to come over tours as a group. So we are actively working through those. This week we have a meeting with the high school to start working on our master schedule for next year. I'm not saying much about it. Again, I already presented a lot, but we just participated in a webinar about the new accountability model that was just passed by the State Board of Ed last week. And so we'll be working with the high school to see what things we need to put in place at the middle school to best serve our students. Our tech department, I want to give a shout out to them. We had some issues with the access point last week, and they communicated, quick turnaround, very minimal disruption of what probably could have been a big deal. So kudos to Bill, the new tech guy, because that was probably pretty stressful, but he handled it well, and it didn't impact the middle school negatively. And so I appreciate their quick response to that. And cafeteria staff, They greet our students 2 times a day with smiles and good food, and it's definitely something we highlight on the tour. As parents, they want to know about what are my kids going to learn, what does it look like here? Kids want to know about recess, and they're very sad to learn that you don't really get recess at middle school, and lunch. And so the cafeteria is always a fun place to highlight the options that they have there. And our cafeteria staff does a great job building connections with our kids. Sometimes they know more about the kids than what we even realize, so it's great. So we're just moving right along at the middle school, counting down till spring break and keeping everybody hanging in there. Any questions?
Hearing none, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Mr. Fugit?
So I'll hit some of my topics more like bullet points, so we can move on since it went 1 hour, 3 hours, or whatever. Last week we had the start of the SAT testing, which is the high school accountability test. It starts on Monday. We always wait till Tuesday so they can work all the kinks out of it statewide. Tuesday the app didn't work statewide, so we got everybody down there and then it didn't work. So then we had to send everybody back, and then we do it about 35 kids a day for 4 hours, split. Anyways, the access points did throw off the high school testing, so instead of being done last week, some of our smaller group settings were not able to test in the academic wing because we didn't have internet to use the app that finally got working. So we have until Friday to get those tests. So we have passed out the information for the newly created scholarship. It went out at the beginning of March. We have a deadline before spring break to get those back. We're trying to talk to any kids that we know are going into the trades, just so that we can promote it as much as we can. So if you guys know anybody, it's out there, and I do know that it's gotten a lot of publicity, and a lot of even younger kids, sophomores and juniors, inquiring about it. We do not have a school improvement plan anymore, but at the beginning of the year, we talked about some of our goals was to up our attendance rate, and the attendance rate is part of the accountability model. And right now, the high school is trending 8% up from last year, and that solely 90% of the work goes through Mike's office in terms of emails and reaching out to parents, and we're trying to find other ways to kind of put pressure on. I'll say it like that. It's getting harder and harder to get kids to come to school. The state says 94% attendance rate is like the goal, and we're at 77% of our students are on pace to meet that goal, which is last year we were 69.5%. So we are trending in the right way, but if you look at just like Chad's presentation showed things from 2019, that number was 90% of students. So this is like a new phenomenon. I mean, kids have always not wanted to come to school, but it's kind of like we got to find more ways to get them there. And we have our theories about why or not, but Howard County Music Festival, I said last week, next time I see you, the Howard County Music Festival will be done. That's not true. It's tomorrow. So they are there practicing tonight, and then Dr. Ritchie and I will be there tomorrow for the longest running high school county music festival in the nation, maybe the world, at least the nation. I do want to recognize our athletic office. We are done with winter sports, and what that looks like, what people don't understand is, depending on if you count events or games, what is set up through our athletic office is over 200 games that take place. 120 of them are home, and some of them, 7th grade game or 8th grade game, but all of the transportation to the away games, all of the officials, all of the workers. It's my understanding that we maybe had one game that somebody who was lined up didn't show up. So that's way more than that's 99.5%. So the winter is a very busy time, and there's a lot that goes through Eric's office, and he could not do it without Julie. But it's a lot, and sometimes you don't necessarily realize it, but sometimes it's 3 to 4 things going on, just like there's 2 middle school tonight, there'd be 3 games tonight. It's a lot, so I just want to recognize them for their work. And then just a side note, kind of my own, I thought Chad's presentation was good. It's stuff that we've all looked at the last couple of years, but he put it all into one PowerPoint just to kind of see. The transfer report is something that we've looked at specifically at the high school. He showed the district. The state even breaks it down by high school, and so we're able to see where we are getting kids and where we are losing kids to. And just like I said last summer when we had our retreat, it's the online schools that we're losing kids to, or the districts that it's technically our district, but Elwood's a minute from them, or Oak Hill. So I just want to highlight that. We're aware of that. We're currently trying to find ways to be more, we've been proactive, but look for other ways to maybe try to get some of those online kids back. The high school ADM was down 4 kids from fall to spring. That's a record low since I've been principal. So typically the high school loses 25 kids a year, either by attrition or graduation. I like to see that number was very promising, because it seems like the students that we have, they want to be there and they're not looking elsewhere. And but then the other side of it is the high school has gotten less and less transfer requests per year. And so I am planning on stopping at the local kind of private schools like I did last year. I have handouts for them to give out for parent nights and things like that. We've already gotten a couple of our transfer requests have been from those schools. We've already had one in. They're accepted for next year, walked around and toured. So we are aware of that, and it's crazy to think about that. We're already moving towards what next year looks like. So that's how it's going. Any questions?
Hearing none. Thank you, Brett. Next item on the agenda is corporation business. I think Dr. Ritchie has a couple things on there.
The first thing we have is recommendation for registration dates for the summer. Talking with Casey today, Thursday, July 23rd works really good for her, and so I would like to recommend that we use Thursday, July 23rd as our registration for new students and those without internet access.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call that for a vote. It passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda.
Okay, as we have done for many years now, we want to recommend that we continue not charging or calling zero fees for kindergartners for the 26-27 school year. A lot of people don't have curricular fees, but even the non-curricular fees, there'll be a zero fee for those kids at this point still.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All right, call that for vote. Sorry, I'm just calling that for a vote earlier. That passes 5-0 as well. Next item on the agenda, treasurer's report.
Well, I survived my first month, so it's been exciting getting to dig into everything and seeing where our money's going and kind of, looking at some ideas of, that I have of some different things, ways to do things. So here's what we've got going for February. Couple of things I wanted to note is there in the education fund under the insurance and travel line, you see a big jump. When I was looking at this report actually this morning, I noticed that insurance and travel line is a little bit misleading because that big jump was due to transfer tuition. It's kind of that object code is kind of lumped in with that group, so might kind of try to clarify that in the future. So we paid for our students who attend the Kokomo Career Center in February, and that's always a large expense. One that's planned, but it's always a large expense. So that will even itself out as we go through the year. So that's what that is. There's that 15% that I know you're always excited to see, the transfers. Operations fund is still looking good. A couple of things I wanted to note there. We did pay for some, I lost my train of thought. The insulation, the spray foam insulation in the elementary and high school, I believe, to kind of help with our utility costs. That expense hit in February, so that kind of drove that up a little bit. Again, those things will even out, but that was the one big thing that I wanted to mention about that we spent on the operations fund this month. Everything looks great. Again, repairs and maintenance is always going to be high because repairs don't look at your budget when things are going wrong. So, but it still looks great. I'm excited about it. Been thinking about some different things I can share with you going forward. Maybe some different reports or maybe just some little tidbits that, so if you think of anything, just you're thinking maybe something you've always wanted to know about or something you're gonna shoot me an email and, I can try to work it in. But I really wanna, I really love what I do and I wanna share it with you. And, but I don't wanna, just tell you stuff you've already heard. I'd love to tell you something new or something that you'd like to know. So, any questions?
Awesome. Any questions?
No.
Hey.
I just want to say, I think it was, I know I talked to Dr. Ritchie, it was like we had a meeting and then it was like the next Friday, I think it was, he sent out his weekly report to us and he said a couple things you had already caught and were changing up and I was like, man, she is on fire right off the bat. I love it. So great job with that. Thank you. Okay, yep, I'll pass it on.
Well, I will say the same thing. She's doing a wonderful job. And, I lean a lot on Jennifer. I think they know that in there, but Jennifer, she leans a lot. We both lean a lot on Amy. Amy's doing a wonderful job. And I don't think we could be any more, I don't want to call it lucky. I don't know what it is, but to have Amy at this time of year and to have Bill, like you said, Bill was in the buildings and with some issues this week and just taking care of business, both of them. And we are very fortunate to have both of them. With that said, I appreciate Chad coming in tonight from Stiefel and for his financial overview. We know that we assume and we feel, it feels like we're doing really good financially. Amy took over and she told me, she reassured me last month, this looks pretty good. I have to trust them, and I know that Justin and Travis did a wonderful job in that office as well. And but to have Chad and Stiefel come in and kind of reassure us that that's really what's taking place. We're a healthy corporation, and that feels good. I was also pleased to hear him stress that the same thing I stress every year. I personally want to see these guys and my teachers get raises every year. And the only way you can do it now is by bringing kids in. And so I am going to continue stressing that 1,600 plus. And he said we're averaging 2 down. I want to take care of those 2. and let's get them back above that. I don't want to lose 2 every year. But these guys have done a wonderful job. 1604 this time of year is amazing in my opinion, and that's something that these guys have done to make sure that happens. And we only did a 1-year contract this year, so next year we can't lean on the fact that we got a 2-year contract. We have to continue to focus on getting kids. We really haven't done much advertising yet, and they're coming in right and left, the applications. So we want to make sure that we look those over, take the kids that we can take, and get that number close to 1625. And I'm going to sit down with these guys over the next few weeks. We're going to set some goals as to what we want to see in each building. But I like that Chad came in and stressed that from the very beginning tonight. I'm excited about what's coming up and our projects. Next month it'll be probably Luke and maybe someone from Ice Miller coming in talking to us about getting ready for these upcoming projects, and probably some votes and stuff. And I know that we have the 40 acres that we want to complete, and there's the playground that we want to get completed, and there might be some other things that we're able to do as well, and as we look at them. So those are exciting things coming up. It's crazy to think that here in the next couple of weeks, spring break is upon us, and some of us will find our ways out of here for a week or two and enjoy our time away. And I think it's always great. I always felt as principal, especially as assistant principal, that sometimes these kids need a week or 2 away from here to come back and get restarted again. And so I'm looking forward to spring break. Then I want to thank Cole back there for coming in again tonight and helping us out. We appreciate it. Bill couldn't be here tonight, but Cole stepped in, and we have great employees that are willing to do that. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Rich? All right, I'll move on to board comments. The ladies previously deferred to you gentlemen, so I guess, Evan, I'll start with you.
I don't have much else to add. Agree with what Dr. Ritchie said. I'm just really grateful that we were able to replace Justin as quickly as possible. I think that we built a lot of momentum with where we've been at, so very grateful to have both you and Bill on board. Excited about the DC trip. My son is moving to middle school next year, and he loves a schedule, so this is his type of thing. So who knows? Maybe some. That's a few years down the road. We can think about that then. But that looks like a great trip, and I think it's a good opportunity for the students, and a pretty decent cost too. So always happy to provide some opportunities for students. Also, just real quickly, the presentation was great. It was a great refresher, but also talking about a lot of things that we've talked about, but just seeing it on really even one slide where we were at 90% of the students in our district we keep was the highest of any within the county or in any of our local schools. So by a decent amount, and then also to add to that, almost 50% transfers coming in. That's a situation I think any school in the state would be envious of. So I think it's something to be grateful for, but there's a lot of work that goes into that to get to that spot. So appreciate all the work that goes into that. And have a safe spring break.
Jordan?
It's a tradition of excellence. Vision for tomorrow. That's how you get there. Yeah, the presentation by Stiefel was excellent. I've been on the board for over a decade or so, and took me many years to wrap my mind around what all of that meant. The ISBA could probably take a page out of that book and have that guy put on a little 1-hour seminar to help kickstart new board members of how to understand what's going on, because he did an excellent job. You can tell he was a teacher. He did an absolute excellent job with that, and I appreciate that. And to Brian's point, he wishes some people would probably watch that video, but probably not. But it would be great. We should almost have we always have convocations for kids. We should do them for the parents. Watch this, you know, this is how things work. So I always like when somebody comes and throws down some facts and, you know, take out the feelings and you can see how things really work. And that was awesome. So I really appreciate that. The DC trip, I hope that it goes. I've been to all of these stops many times, and I like to see that you guys are doing a lot of stuff at nighttime because DC's a whole nother place, those memorials at night, right? Like it's a whole nother experience. Fun fact for you too, I saw that the Library of Congress is on there, and did you know you can get a library card for that? So as a card-carrying member of the Library of Congress, well, so it's the only way to get on the floor. You can only look at it from above and through windows. So I asked them, I'm like, how do you get down there? Like, there's people in there. How do you get down in there? They go, you have to have a library card. And I thought, ha ha ha. They're like, no, for real, you have to have a library card. So if you go down about 7 miles of hallways, not even exaggerated, insane amount of time down there, you can wait in line and you can get yourself a library card. And then you can go on the floor and touch whatever you want.
How long is that good for?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. So, pretty fun. We had, and there's a lot more stories I can share with you off record, that we had a lot of fun with that. Good time. And let's see here. Wonder what I meant. Oh yeah, so yeah, the year is flying by. January and February, maybe the fastest January and February I can remember in my life. And it wasn't because the weather was awesome, but it just flew by. March is a third of the way over already. So the fact that we're planning for a spring break next year and everything else, it seems right on track with just how fast life is going right now. I don't know what's going on, but it feels like everybody I talk to, everything's on fast forward right now, and I
Because you're getting older.
don't know about that, but I think everybody else is. I'm staying the same, but it's on fast forward. And anyway, I appreciate it. Onboarding of Amy, glad to have you on the team. Yeah, I think things are great. So appreciate everybody's hard work. Abby?
I wanted to say thank you to Chad and that presentation. To be honest, like I really learned a lot. Like it was very good for me to see all of that. I mean, while I think I understood like a baseline of it, it was just good to see how he broke it down. So I did learn a lot and I appreciated that. I just think it's awesome that kids and parents want their kids to be at Eastern. Like the amount of transfer kids that we have and the choices that are out there, and we are the top to be chosen, and I just think that that's awesome. Very thankful for that, and that's thanks to you guys and our staff for that and the experience that they get daily in our buildings. I have a special thank you to Mackenzie Fugit, because my kid is reading like crazy, and I just think that that program is amazing, and I'm so thankful for it. The words that she can read, I'm just blown away, and I know if I'm noticing it, then other parents are too. So special thank you to her and the staff that are running that program, because it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, that, and thank you for the report. It was great, and welcome, and have a great spring break, everybody.
All right, sure.
Well, I'm gonna ditto what everyone else said. And I agree with thanking Mackenzie, because I've got a third grader that is reading really well, and his little brother that's going to be a kindergartner, he's aggravated because he can't read what his brother's reading, but he's working on it. So, again, that's all thanks to the reading program that we had going on and stuff. Everything sounded good. I know the elementary does a wonderful job, and I know the kids are all happy there, and I think the fact that we have so many transfers, which we really need, but the fact that Greentown itself is not growing, there's no one's building anything. We don't have a big economy here, and the fact that we can draw so many students from other schools, that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And I mean, I'd hope we'd have to buy another bus to get them in here. But, that goes again to just, the culture that we have here. We have a great staff. Everyone has done such a fine job on, I hate to use the word replacing people, but when you do have to make changes and stuff, we've done such a great job on finding the key people to go in all of our spots, you know, and that's thrilling, so. And yes, I pray this DC trip goes. I pray it goes. So I'll be very, very interested in, you know, how the kids, the itinerary looks great. I've been to all those places one time, and I'd really like to do it all again. So that part's really good. And yes, it's amazing how quickly the time is going. You know, just like spring break coming. I was fortunate to have an early spring break, but that's okay. I hope everybody has as good a one as I did and comes back recharged, refreshed, and ready to finish out the year. I know it's really tough, especially at the high school level, to keep kids on track after spring break, because they just almost throw up their hands and say, we didn't think that's the end of it. But I know we'll finish strong like we always do, and I just appreciate everything that everybody does. Thanks.
If somebody once told me that time goes faster the older you get.
And that's the truth. I've been doing daylight savings time for a long time now.
Everybody's commented on it, but like when he was going through that slideshow and showing where kids are coming from, I don't know if anybody else, I quickly counted 21 different school districts.
Mm.
And I think that's impressive, that we have kids from 21 different districts. I used to advertise that at the kindergarten roundup. I can remember when we had 14 or 15, but to see it up there in his report, 21 different ones, that says a lot too.
That's a number you can't repeat at the elementary right there.
I'm-
21 school districts,
Yeah,
and
21.
we don't have the online. So those are actually butts and seats. That's not, we don't get to claim like the other three or whatever that they were talking about, like, oh, you lost a couple to way down south, they've got an online.
Right.
We're not stealing online. Our product is our product. And that's a lot to be said. Did you?
I'm done.
You're done?
Thank you.
Okay. I would ditto everything that everybody else said. A lot of great things. Not to flaunt it, but I would love if that presentation could somehow find the website at some point. If nothing else, just that one slide with the circles about where the funding comes from. If we could just steal that from his thing, I mean, there's so many things that people just don't understand. They don't understand where the money comes from and stuff
Yes.
like that. Like that slide, if he would let us just steal that and put that
Yes.
on the website, that would be some valuable knowledge for our taxpayers, I guess is the way I would say it, constituents, whatever. Again, I'm so happy to be here, part of a great school corporation. I mentioned it before, but you see people like Bill Heck, who was a school board member when I was a student here. All of us, minus Cheryl, were students here.
She worked here.
Cheryl was close.
I worked here.
She put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this corporation,
Yes.
but this job is so much easier. It's not a super easy job to start out with, but our job is way easier because the people that did the right thing before us.
Mhm.
We don't have to
Recreate the wheel.
recreate or make
Yes.
the least painful decision because of previous decisions that were made. So that's just awesome to be a part of. I'm gonna pull a little bit of a fast one here. Something popped in my head during the meeting. Actually, Mr. Fugit caused this problem. He mentioned scholarships. We have a board scholarship, and We made some major shifting this past year. Previously, when we made a huge shift and made the changes in how it's presented on awards night, Jordan handled a lot of that as the president. I am not the wordsmith that Jordan is, nor do I use all kind of boat references. So I would ask for at least a volunteer. I'm not gonna throw it on Jordan because he's got a bunch of other stuff going on. But if any one of you could possibly step up to work with maybe Jennifer and getting our phraseology, because I think that has to get into the academic. Brad, you probably understand it more than I do, but I think that needs to get in plenty of time for them to get all that ready for awards night, and that's gonna be here before we know it. So could I get somebody to volunteer to help Jennifer reword that? Okay, Abby, thank you for stepping up for that. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm not a great wordsmith, so we changed some funding stuff and all that, and so I want that to be actually accurate this year when we do that. So, if anybody else wants to be a part of that, please get in contact with Abby as well, and we'll do that. So, sorry to throw that on you, Jennifer. After so long, you probably just assume that I'm gonna screw up this board meeting night, so. Having nothing else on the agenda, I will accept a motion to adjourn pending signatures on said documents.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Further discussion? Too bad. I'll call it for a vote. And that passes 5-0. Thank you all. Have a safe trip home.